You're listening to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvin, and this is the show where you get expert advice about the heavy duty parts you buy and sell and keep you informed about what's happening in the industry. What is the state of heavy duty repair? We've got a special report to review with you that is provided by Fullbay and TMC. Jacob Findlay is the founder and CEO of Fullbay, and they are a leading provider of heavy-duty shop management software. Jacob is also a returning guest. If you'd like to go back and listen to the origin story of Fullbay, how the company got started, the services that they provide, go back and listen to episode 21. The links are in the show notes. So let's get Jacob back on the Heavy Duty Parts Report. Jacob, my friend, welcome back to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm so glad to have you here again.
Thank you, Jamie. It's great to be back.
When I saw this report that you had put out, I really wanted to talk to you about it because I think it's an important subject. And I was really curious about why you decided to partner with TMC to really put this report out and make it available to the industry.
Well, we believe that the industry needs more visibility. It's part of the backbone of our economy. And so we can play a role with that. But we've been building a stronger and stronger relationship with TMC over the past few years. And I love the work that they do. We love the work they do. And they're largely run by volunteers too, right? So anything that any one of us can do to pitch and to kind of further that mission helps. So they're in a great position also to kind of raise the visibility of the commercial repair industry, not only to the general public, but also among their membership, which is typically mostly fleet members, not a lot on the independent repair side. So we felt like it was a win-win. We could provide more visibility to TMC across the independent repair shops, and then we could provide more visibility of the independent repair shops to TMC. So we want more shops to be aware of TMC, and we want more TMC members to be aware of this commercial space. And then beyond that, we want to also, as much as we can, shine a light on this industry across the general public so people appreciate the key role that the commercial repair industry plays in our economy.
I was a moderator on a webinar not that long ago where we had Ruin Transportation in, and they talked about the importance of the independent service channel to them. Yes, they have deep relationships with, truck OEs because they're buying trucks, and they have national repair contracts and parts contracts and things like that in place. But they still need the independent service channel because those trucks have to go. And sometimes they need to bring in that independent service channel to help them. So it's such an important partnership really in our industry. And for those of you who may not know, the TMC stands for Technology and Maintenance Council, and it is absolutely the go-to place for fleets for great information. But Fullbay is kind of in a unique position, and I'd like you to explain to us a little bit about how your company actually, because of its unique position, was able to partner with TMC and produce this great report that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so we're a shop management platform, but we are unique in that we focus exclusively on commercial repair. So that's B2B repair, which is what we're talking about, right? So when we're talking about fleets of any size and of any equipment type, where they send their equipment to be repaired, those shops are what we focus on. So we don't deal with small retail repair shops where maybe people take their personal vehicle to get repaired. So because of that focus, we've really been able to roll up a good chunk of the commercial repair space, and we're growing fast and growth is accelerating. So with that, we have the largest collection of real-time repair information for fleets in North America by far. And so with that information comes responsibility. And we also have a lot of requests from our customers to be able to benchmark themselves against, in an anonymized way, the industry. So there's that, right? So we kind of have an obligation to the industry to share what we can and share what insights we can, which we are very glad to do because it just furthers the cause. I think there's a lot of problems to be solved in the industry, and we're much better off collaborating as much as we possibly can versus guarding information like that. So we felt like it was an obligation of ours to do this. And we also felt like shop owners deserved it, right? And they also deserve any kind of additional visibility that we can give to the industry, like I mentioned earlier. So what we did was, you mentioned like, how did we pull the data together? So certainly some of it is anonymized data from our users that they gave us permission to use. And then beyond that, we wanted to make sure that we kind of mitigate any bias toward Fullbay customers, because there's certain benchmarks, key metrics that would be skewed if you were just to look at our customer base. For example, well, I can go into it, but so what we did was, in addition to taking that anonymized data set, we also did a full market study of non-Fullbay customers to gather the same benchmark data to make sure we could kind of attenuate that bias. So it's, when we're talking about efficiency, we can clearly see in the data that the shops that are using our software have much higher efficiency than the general market. So we need to make sure that that's not skewed. So we have a good understanding of what the true efficiency rate across the market is, not just among Fullbay customers. So the market study was part of that. So two-pronged approach, anonymized data from our large collection, and then market study to attenuate any bias.
And is that kind of the role that TMC stepped in to help with, was that market research? I see from your perspective as being the software provider, you've got the data. But when it comes to the market research, is that where TMC stepped up and helped you?
Yeah, they were super helpful in not just that. I mean, we have an incredible store of market data ourselves too, not just among our customers. It's a key focus of ours, but TMC was able to help us formulate the questions and determine what kind of the key, because this was the first of what we hope to be many of these reports. So what are the benchmarks that we want to look at? What are the kind of qualitative questions that we want to address, and so forth? So yeah, they were helpful there. They were also helpful in designing the study, and also helpful in looking at ways to get the market study distributed and so forth.
Right. And how many independent repair shops are we talking about in the US?
There's a lot, Jamie. That's do you know how many there are, Jamie?
I don't know off the top of my head. I do know from some work I've done on the mobile side that there could be as many as 80,000 mobile repair organizations. When it comes to independent repair shops, I really don't know. That's what I was hoping you could answer.
Depending on who you ask, you're going to get a wide range of opinions on that. And I'll let you know when I know for sure, Jamie.
But it is in the tens of thousands, no doubt about that.
It's a bigger number than we originally thought going in, and which is very gratifying for us because, and for me personally, because, in starting Fullbay, it was a big risk, and I was willing to take that risk based on the number that I believed existed, and it turns out it's much bigger than that.
Wow, that's awesome. Because one of the things I'm thinking about as you're describing this process that you went through to pull together this first state of the repair report, I was thinking, when there's so many different repair shops and they are working in so many different geographical areas, so they have different vocations and different industries surrounding them, and so you're going to have a lot of variation. I can see how TMC and you coming together to collaborate would strengthen the quality of the questions asked and the data. There's so much of it, I'm sure, on the software side. It's like, which data is important? Yeah,
absolutely. That just underscores the need for members of this industry to collaborate with each other, because this is the way I think of it. We view ourselves at Fullbay as kind of like a Switzerland, right? I believe that the walled garden approach of only having a couple partners and kind of hunching together and not sharing information is the wrong approach, hands down. The right approach, and it's something that's enabled through modern APIs, and I think it's something that people expect in this day and age, is to cooperate and collaborate within reason, right? There's need to know information and so forth. So that was the approach taken with TMC as we deepen our relationship with them. And then I would also, encourage anybody else out there who is looking to solve similar problems to this to be more open and collaborative, because, the company next to you doesn't have to fail in order for you to win. I really believe in the concept of synergy, where 2 + 2 can equal 5 or more when we are open, honest, work together, and so forth. So in economics, there's this principle called the law of comparative advantage, which basically talks about how there's a reason why countries trade with each other, because if every single country was trying to build everything ever in their country by their design and so forth, just imagine if every country was trying to build their own version of an iPhone, for example, right? We're better off in trading with each other. Some countries get good at one thing, others get good at another thing. And so I think the industry is very well served through collaboration and executing on that principle of comparative advantage where it makes sense, and err on the side of collaboration. So TMC is a great partner, and I think there's a lot that can be done in this space in raising visibility in the industry. And that was our hope in involving partners.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Would you like to advertise on the Heavy Duty Parts Report? Head over to heavydutypartsreport.com/contact and fill out the form. Spots are limited and on a first come, first serve basis. We're back from our break, and before the break, we were talking about how Fullbay and TMC came together to create this new report called the State of Repair. And it's all about the state of repair in heavy duty. And so I wanted to talk a little bit more about the data. You used a couple words in our first segment where you were talking about qualitative and quantitative. And could you really explain the difference between qualitative information and quantitative information?
Absolutely. So quantitative information tends to be things like numbers, things that could be measured objectively. So like efficiency rates, pay rates, shop revenue numbers, profitability numbers. That would be like a quantitative metric.
Right. So like, for example, I'm a technician with 5 years experience and I'm getting paid $32 an hour. And in this shop, the same technician with 5 years experience is getting paid $33 an hour. There's a quantitative measurement where there's a noticeable difference.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that you could input that into a spreadsheet, sort the columns, run a calculation, quantitative data. The other thing would be qualitative data. And this is the kind of thing that's more gleaned through interviews or qualitative questions like, what are your biggest challenges as a shop? Or, how do you go about solving morale issues or counting inventory and so forth. So there's that aspect. So you can never just have the one. The quantitative is important and is more and more important in this day and age because of our ability to collect data. But the qualitative helps to color that and helps, answer some of the why questions and the what questions. So
it seems to me like the qualitative data gives us context and helps us to put the quantitative data, the stuff that's on the spreadsheet, into a narrative that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. If you think about the repair process, it's similar to the whole complaint cause correction thing, right? Somebody comes in potentially with a commentary, there's a complaint, and then you do diagnostic work and get some objective measurement data to color that also. So altogether, then you can use that to diagnose what the underlying issue is. Same thing goes at a macro level when you're looking at the industry. You want to mix the quantitative with the qualitative to help solve these problems.
So when we were in our first segment, we were talking about this partnership between you and TMC and how TMC is so focused on fleets, but fleets do a lot of their own repair work. So I kind of want to get your perspective as you pulled together this information. How important is small, independently owned repair shops to the trucking industry?
Yeah, you're right. A lot of fleets do their own repair work, but as we know, the fleet side of things is extremely fragmented. So whether you call a FedEx or a Knight Swift the number one in the space, those super large fleets are few and far between. The vast majority of, especially if we're talking over the road, but also companies hauling their own product, the vast majority of this stuff is done by smaller fleets, many of whom are not big enough to have an internal shop or not a significant internal operation. So I would say the majority of work that is done on commercial equipment in the US and Canada is done by essentially small mom and pop shops who are, under 10 employees, and take those out of the equation and a huge chunk of our economy grinds to a halt. There's a lot of reliance on small businesses to keep these trucks running. Until 15 years ago, I had never heard of the commercial repair industry. I just didn't grow up in it. And the more I got to know it, the more I realized how important it is. But I think that hasn't really changed. When you talk to people outside of the industry, they don't really understand what it is and what it means and how critical a role it plays. They don't even think of it at all. It doesn't even cross their mind. So I think raising the profile with TMC, even because a lot of times the focus there is just on the fleets, it's not necessarily on the independent shops. There is a lot of work being done around internal fleet maintenance, but as far as the independents go, there's a lot of growth potential there among TMC to get to get these independents in the door. So that was part of the purpose.
I'm never looking for places to agree or disagree with my guests. I'm always just listening. And as you say these things, certain things come to mind. I know in my own experience working in a small community the last few years when I was a sales account manager for Truck Pro's Canadian division. And, we have a town of about 8,500 people. And there's a lot of industry around us. So there's logging, oil field work, and also mining, a lot of industry. And in our little town of 8,500 people, we've got a lot of independently owned fleets that have repair shops. But you said something very important, that their repair capabilities are kind of capped. And so in this small town of 8,500 people, we have at least 4 independently owned repair shops that does all the work that those fleets can't do themselves. So while the fleet might handle things like oil changes and filter changes and maybe brakes and things like that, regular inspections and larger, more complex work where there's more of a need for diagnostics is all done at these independently owned repair shops that provide those services to the fleets. So that's just in our little town, 8,500 people. Now think about it across all of Canada, across all of the United States, how important of a role these shops are actually playing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's a great point. So if we're talking about light maintenance, quick fixes from a pre-trip or post-trip inspection, right? You will see fleets that have a mechanic on staff, but they're not necessarily taking care of the whole thing. And it's not necessarily encompassing kind of a comprehensive preventive maintenance program, because the number one concern for these fleets is avoiding downtime, right? And so absolutely.
Yeah, it's more reactionary. It's more reactive than proactive. It's like, oh, there's a taillight out, or we got a dragging wheel, we got to fix that because that truck's got to go in a couple hours. It's all reactive.
Right. And if you look at the size of the fleet, so maybe they have a mechanic on staff, but given the size of the fleet, you have people wearing multiple hats. So there might be somebody who is in charge of keeping track of certain files for DOT compliance and so forth. But until you get to a certain critical mass, there's just not the headcount available to really dedicate to solving that. And I know that's kind of a different subject. We should talk about that. There's a lot of interesting issues at play in there.
Okay, well, before we get into that, I was really curious. You did this report, you pulled all this information together. Was there something that really jumped out at you, that really surprised you, that you didn't see coming? I mean, you've already talked about the number of independent repair shops out there was much larger than you ever imagined. Was there anything else that really got your attention?
Yeah, I mean, well, a couple things. I mean, first of all, we started this project and the data collection before COVID hit, and then COVID hits in the middle of it, right? So it creates this unique kind of juxtaposition of, what was pre-COVID and then during COVID, and then as we start to see waves and then potentially coming out. So seeing the impact of COVID on the industry, whether by sector, so in your Canadian town, a lot of reliance on extraction, oil and gas mining, and so forth. How were they affected versus other sectors, right? So sector by sector impact, and then regional impact. How was the Midwest impacted versus Southwest, and then across the board? And we're talking things like shop revenue, year over year growth. So that's all inside the report. So that was interesting, and interesting timing to be able to show that impact. And probably the biggest thing that surprised me, though, was, I mean, it shouldn't be surprising because, we've all been in shops. We've seen how these things operate, but it would be the gender gap, right? So when you look at gender among shops, we know that very few technicians are female. A lot of times you'll see females working in the front office or the back office. So according to our data, it's about 27% of shop employees are female, which is, the population contains, I don't know if you know this, Jamie, and you can disagree with me on this one too, but it's about 50-50, right? 50% male, 50% female.
We are not getting into identity politics and gender too much, but I will agree with you that roughly speaking, it's a 50-50. If we're talking
generally speaking, yeah, it's roughly 50-50. So 27% of shop employees, that's not a huge surprise, but when you really dig into the data, like we know there's not a lot of female technicians, but when you dig into it, it's less than 1% of technicians are female, which is mind-blowing. And for several reasons, I mean, it's not really a surprise because, there's, traditional ideas about what males and females can do. There's a lot of heavy lifting. There's different things that go on in a technician's life, but there are perceptions of what females can and can't do. And typically people will look at a technician's role and say, it's better for a man to be in there. There's factors in play. But I think that there's two major trends that bode well for this. And this is in a world where people can't find technicians, right?
Right. I was just thinking that. I'm like, this is the biggest opportunity for the industry because we have a shortage of technicians and we have this basically completely wide open opportunity to bring in and attract a whole new group of highly intelligent and often articulate and very, very conscientious people who can become technicians. So
exactly.
To me, this is like, I'm hearing music and everything is a party now because it's like, wow, this is a real opportunity to solve one of the major problems in the industry.
It absolutely is. And when you think about the increasing role of diagnostic technicians and the needs there, a good diagnostic technician helps prevent your shop from becoming just a parts changing operation, right? You want to get to the root of the issue and not just swap out parts and think it's going to solve the problem. And a good diag technician does that. Why can't we have more females in as diagnostic technicians? They're not necessarily doing in-frames and lifting super heavy things. There is diagnostic things involved with actually pulling things apart. But if we're talking about the bulk of the diagnostic work, thinking like a troubleshooter, so on and so forth, why can't we have more females doing that? Why can't we take half of the population and try to bring them in as technicians? Why can't females do this? And then I think the second trend is electrification, right? When we're yanking out the engine and the transmission and potentially the absolute bulk of the drivetrain, there are now way fewer heavy parts involved. And that could eliminate some of the traditional barriers that people have seen for women. So I think the representation of women among the shops, the 27% metric is interesting, but it's the less than 1% thing that is shocking and does seem in a shortage of technicians there's something there. There's an opportunity there.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Don't have a heavy-duty part number and need to look up a part? Diesel Parts is a cross-reference and parts lookup tool that makes it easier to identify heavy-duty parts than ever before. Go to parts.diesellaptops.com or download the app on Apple or Android to create your free account. Before the break, we were talking about the exciting opportunities that really are represented in one of the surprising outcomes of this state of repair report. And Jacob was talking to us about how there are 27% of shop employees are female, but only 1% are in the role of technician. And so we were talking about how awesome of an opportunity that is for the industry. Jacob, Steve Jobs once said, I'm not going to get a perfect quote here, but it was something along the lines of, death is a gift because it clears away the old and makes room for the new. And he was talking about that as he was facing cancer and as he was facing potentially the end of his life. But what he was really trying to say is that sometimes in order for things to change, we have to clear away some of the old ways of doing things and we have to adopt new ways of doing things. We're talking about the opportunity to include more women in our industry. And certainly if we can clear away some of those old traditional views that it's a man's job or that women, aren't going to be physically capable of doing it, and we can just look at the real opportunity there. This is an opportunity to probably close some of the wage gap as well, because technicians get paid really, really well. So if more women can work in the industry and can get access to those higher paying wages, this helps bring close the wage gap. I'm excited about that. But what other information did you learn about wages when you were studying all of the data?
It's in the report. I believe we go in and we break it out by region and we see that, but there's no question that we're seeing wage inflation among technicians because they say the solution to high prices is high prices, right? So in order to find technicians, shops are being forced to pay them more. And what we tell shops is that you need to make sure that sounds crass, but you need to make sure that you're passing those costs on to your customers. So a well-run shop should be targeting a certain profit margin on the labor side. And if you're having to increase your wages to bring technicians in, it's appropriate to therefore increase your hourly rate that you charge your customers, if that makes sense. So we're definitely seeing that. And the shops that are willing to pay more have a leg up on recruiting. You know, you hear anecdotal stories of technicians who are leaving for 25 cents an hour, which is a little bit surprising, but it's the reality. And what I would counsel a shop owner who is facing this is that I've thought a lot about things like efficiency bonuses and so forth in the past. But when you read up more on the psychology of things, it's much better to just pay people more upfront and then get them engaged in a vision for what you're trying to do versus kind of the carrot and stick approach. There's a lot of nuance to this, and we could go into this too, just like the fleet shop count and so forth. But we're definitely seeing wage inflation. Unless shops are willing to raise their prices, they're going to feel the squeeze on that. So,
yeah. See, man, we could be here for about 6 more hours to unpack everything that you just said, because I'm thinking about, you know, the costs get passed on to the fleet, then that gets passed on to their customers, and eventually society has to pay for that. So there's the inflation there. But then also when you think about attracting people to the industry, the high cost of tools to get into the industry, there's more than one way to add to value to the total package you're offering a technician. It's not just wages, right? Help them with their tools, help them with their education, get them into the industry, right? Treat them really well. And that idea of having a larger purpose. You used language that I like to use about the way I feel about the industry. The trucking industry is the backbone of society. We live in this free society. We have lots of problems, but we are by far the historically wealthiest people who have ever lived in all history. We have the most opportunities. We have all of this freedom. You don't get what we have without the trucking industry supporting society. And it is almost invisible because we do it really well, but there's still lots of room for improvement. So when I hear you talk about all of this, I think when it comes to the independent service channel, you know, there is a lot of competition with the OES as well. And one of the things I talk to a lot of people about is the fact that the independent service channel is not as well supported as the technicians who work for, let's say, a truck dealership. And so there's lots of room for improvement here. But from all the data that you reviewed, where do you see the biggest opportunity for the independent service channel going forward?
I think we have to recognize reality. By far in the survey results, finding technicians, once again, is the number one problem for the industry. So if you are a shop that is not making the absolute best use of the technicians that you have, you need to solve that problem first. Because finding customers, and this varies by geographic location, but for the most part, finding customers is not the issue. It's finding enough technicians. There's more work there to be done than technicians to be found. And so if you have technicians that are standing around, and technicians don't like that either. I mean, if you want technicians to stick around, work is a spiritual necessity, right? It feels good to do a good day's work and then go home and spend time with family and loved ones. So you need to be enabling that. So, and it's a win-win. So if you have technicians and you see this all the time in shops, right? If you have technicians who are having to stand around waiting to be assigned something, or waiting for a part, or the wrong part got ordered, or waiting for a job to get authorized, if they're standing around and they're not being productive, they're not happy, and you're making a lot less money. So if you are hungry for more technicians, which I imagine every shop owner, almost without exception, is hungry for more technicians, look inward to make sure that you don't have your technicians standing around. It makes them less happy, and it makes you a lot less productive than you otherwise could be. So I think that's the biggest opportunity. We're in 2021 now, and the tools are available to make that a reality. So you should be solving that problem. And then, once you have that problem solved, you can start looking at scaling your business. And typically, one of the reasons so many of the shops are small mom and pop shops is because it takes so much mental power to keep this thing going. And which was one of the reasons we have found a lot of success, because we stepped in essentially with an operating system for a shop that takes it out of the owner's brain and bakes it into processes and algorithms inside the software. So it frees you to grow and scale. And we see that among our customers where they're starting to grow. So it depends at the shop level, to answer your question, it depends on what the owner of the shop wants. Do you want to build a lifestyle business that is getting you a good income and is allowing you to spend time with your family and with your loved ones and on your personal development? If that's what you're going after, then maybe you keep it at one location and just really turn that thing into a well-oiled machine. If you want to, make a run at it and become a consolidator and kind of a regional, if not national player, I think it's the same path. It's just a matter of now you open that second, third location, put in the exact same processes, systems, and so forth, and you're able to. So I think that's the solution. The operators that do that are going to have the money to pay the technicians more and are going to start pulling technicians from the shops that don't do that. As far as an industry goes, I think we have to be prepared for electrification, which, getting outside of our industry, sometimes it can feel like, oh man, maybe I'm a horse and buggy manufacturer in 1915 and cars are evil, right? And we need to realize that society is moving forward. Go test drive a Tesla if you haven't. See what it's like. Electric is the future. We need to recognize that. We will see a convergence of technology where the battery mass and so forth gets to the point where it could even be applied to long haul applications, heavy applications. So that's coming. Make sure that you're running a lean and mean operation, and you're going to have work. There's still maintenance to be done on even electrified vehicles. And so don't worry too much about that. Possibly the key word for the future there is diversity of drivetrain. Just keep doing what we're doing. I think keep the economy running and make sure that you are, as strong as possible and that you are taking time for yourself and having, a good personal life outside the shop. I think that's the best thing.
You've been listening to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvin, and we've been speaking with Jacob Findlay, founder and CEO of Fullbay. If you want to read this report that they've pulled together, go to heavydutyreport.com. Jacob, thank you so much for being on the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I appreciate you coming back on.
Absolutely, Jamie. Hey, one more thing for the shops. Count your inventory. It's not fun, but just do it. You'll make more money. I'm done, Jamie.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that last minute piece of advice. And I'm sure people will be listening to this episode 1 or 2 or maybe 3 times just to catch all the awesome value that was packed into it. But head over to heavydutyreport.com to download your free copy of this state of repair report. Want to buy any of the parts mentioned in this episode? Visit heavydutyreport.com/buy parts. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvin, and I just like to remind everyone to focus on cost per mile and let's keep those trucks and trailers rolling. You can watch our next video. Make sure to click the like button, write a comment, and don't forget to subscribe.